to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled we're jumping into a topic that's literally the invisible backbone of almost every Java application out there: file I/O and streams. If you've ever stared at the java.io package and just felt totally overwhelmed by the alphabet soup of classes, file readers, input streams, buffered writers, trust me, you're not alone. But don't worry, today we're going to demystify the whole shebang and help you really master data flow. But before we start writing any code, think about this for a second. Where does your data actually go when the terminal closes? We spend all this time writing brilliant logic, crunching massive arrays, right? But if we're only relying on RAM, volatile memory, the second your program stops executing, poof, all that hard work vanishes into thin air. That's the fundamental problem we're solving here. To make our apps truly useful, we need persistent storage. We have to safely bridge that gap between our Java code and the physical hard drive. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Demystifying Java streams. 2. Byte versus character streams. 3. Reading and writing files. 4. Java I/O versus Java NIO. And finally, 5. Closing your I/O streams. Section 1. Demystifying Java streams. So Java handles this whole communication process through something called a stream, which is really just a sequence of data. The best way to visualize it? It's like a unidirectional bridge. It's a handy abstraction Java gives us so we don't have to deal with the incredibly messy, complex details of physical hardware. Whether you're pulling input from a keyboard, grabbing a file over a network socket, or saving a text doc, Java just treats it all as a stream of data. The absolutely key word to remember here is unidirectional. Data either flows in or it flows out. It's strictly a one-way street. Moving on to Section 2, byte versus character streams. Now, Java I/O is split into two really distinct hierarchies based on what kind of data you're dealing with. First, we have byte streams. These handle raw 8-bit bytes. So if you're trying to read an image, a PDF, maybe an audio file, you absolutely have to use a byte stream. And you'll spot these classes pretty easily because they almost always end in the words input stream or output stream. On the flip side, we have character streams. These are explicitly designed for handling Unicode characters. Reading a text file, parsing some JSON, dealing with internationalized strings, you use a character stream. And conveniently enough, these classes usually end in reader or writer. It's actually a beautifully logical separation once you see it laid out. All right, Section 3, reading and writing files. Whatever you're dealing with files in Java, I highly recommend treating it like a strict physical safety protocol. It's a 3-part sequence every single time. Step 1, open the stream. You're establishing that connection to the file. Step 2, perform your actual read or write operation, pushing or pulling data across that bridge we talked about. And step 3, which is absolutely critical, close the stream. Release that physical resource back to the operating system. We're going to get into exactly why step 3 is so vital in just a bit, but for now, just burn the sequence into your brain. When you're reading text files, you usually have to choose between tools like Scanner and Buffer Reader. Now, Scanner, it's fantastic for simple parsing. It's got those handy built-in methods to grab integers or strings, and it uses white space as a default delimiter. Super easy. But it's not thread safe, it has a tiny internal buffer, and all that parsing takes processing time, which makes it pretty slow. Buffer Reader, on the other hand, is your heavy-duty industrial tool. It reads large chunks of data into memory all at once. It's thread safe, and it is significantly faster for high-performance text reading. Basically, if you're processing massive log files, Buffer Reader is absolutely the way to go. Next up, Section 4, Java I/O versus Java NIO. So, back in JDK 4, Java introduced a massive architectural shift with Java NIO. That stands for New I/O. Classic Java I/O is stream-oriented, and crucially, it's blocking, meaning if a thread asks to read a file, that thread is entirely blocked. It just sits there twiddling its thumbs until the data arrives. Java NIO completely flips the script. It's buffer-oriented and uses bidirectional channels instead of one-way streams. But the real game changer, it supports non-blocking asynchronous operations. A thread can tell a channel, hey, start reading data into this buffer, and then that thread can go off and do other work while the data is being fetched. It is a massive performance upgrade for concurrent, data-heavy apps. And that brings us to Section 5, closing your I/O streams. Like I mentioned earlier, you've got to treat your files like a physical valve on a water pipe. If you don't close them, bad things are going to happen. First, failing to close a stream leads to resource leakage, which will slowly but surely eat away at your system memory. Second, data corruption. Classes like buffered writers stage their data in temporary memory. If you don't close the stream, which is what automatically flushes that buffer, your last chunk of data might never actually make it to the hard drive. No way you want that. And Finally, operating systems like Windows will physically lock a file while a Java stream is open. Leave it open, and literally no other application can access or modify it. Now, you might be thinking, doesn't Java have a garbage collector to clean up my mess? Well, as this fantastic point from Balding highlights, we absolutely shouldn't solely depend on the GC. Sure, some streams try to close themselves in their finalize method, but the execution of the garbage collector is never actually guaranteed. Your app could easily run out of system resources and completely crash, long before the garbage collector ever decides to wake up and reclaim those open streams. It is just not a risk worth taking. In the old days, developers had to write these massive, incredibly clunky finally blocks just to manually check and close every single stream. It was a headache. But thankfully, Java 7 introduced an elegant, modern solution that's just a massive relief, the try with resources statement. By declaring any class that implements the auto-closable interface right inside the parentheses of your try block, Java just takes over. It completely automates the teardown process for you. The second that try block finishes, whether it succeeds or throws an exception, Java automatically closes the stream. It gives you incredibly clean, safe, and leak-proof code. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, right? From the basic abstraction of unidirectional streams all the way to the high-performance non-blocking channels of NIO, and of course the absolute necessity of safe resource management. So I want to leave you with this final thought. How are you going to apply these concepts to optimize resource management and stream efficiency in your very next data-heavy application? Take a look at your current code bases. Can you spot any unclosed streams? Maybe it's time to upgrade that old scanner to a buffered reader. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy coding.